All right, in other developing news, the ANC NEC is holding a special meeting today to finalise the names of people who will be put down for the Electoral Commission's candidate list. This gathering comes at a time when almost 100 corruption-accused senior party leaders have been flagged by the Integrity Committee as needing to be disqualified from this process. Now, the IEC's deadline for nomination lists is this Friday. Newzroom Afrika's Ziyanda Ngcobo joins us live for an update of what we can expect. Ziyanda, it's great to see you as always. Does this mean that the ANC now has a very shrinking list of candidates who can be put down on this list, given what the Integrity Committee says?
Well, Michelle, that's not something that should be taken lightly, or you're not speculating in the wrong direction, if I could put it that way, because that's exactly what it means. It means this meeting is going to be that much more intense. It means that the ANC is going to have to come out and explain to citizens how it keeps pushing the goalposts when it comes to the step-aside guidelines, given the fact that you have someone like Zandile Gumede, who is actively campaigning for the ANC in eThekwini, and yet she was on the step-aside guidelines. And even the guidelines that have been followed by the Electoral Committee that is being led by Chairperson Kgalema Motlanthe, we heard earlier, just a short while ago, in fact, from ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula telling us that there are particular guidelines that are followed dealing with issues of integrity, dealing with issues of these issues of corruption accused, and of course a vetting process that has been undertaken in terms of various criteria. He wasn't quite clear on what it means for those corruption accused who are implicated in the Zondo Commission report, or those who may be facing allegations but may not necessarily be before a court of law, because there is a gap there when it comes to the step-aside guidelines. And of course, there's this issue of the trust deficit that exists between the ANC and citizens on how they're dealing with corruption, both internally but at a much larger scale when it's dealing with deployees in the government.
Absolutely, Ziyanda. And that discrepancy between, corruption accused versus corruption charged is a loophole that the party has used time and time again, right?
And it's likely to be used again, Michelle. In fact, I'm hearing from sources that they're likely to try and find a different way of explaining this step-aside guideline. You'll recall that at the time of its inception, we were told that it's gone through rigorous, hands, in terms of legal hands, and so that it passes the legal test in terms of removing people. But we're seeing many others. In fact, the ANC Secretary General admitting during that brief doorstop that there are many people who are on step-aside that are still serving in legislatures, and he spoke about the standing of a person, the nature of the charge that they face, and again, it seems like it's shifting the goalpost further, Michelle, because at the end of the day, internally, it seems like they're going to cherry pick on the basis of the power, so to speak, of particular individuals in terms of the voting bloc that they may be able to bring, their popularity in society, given the fact that the ANC has to pull out all the stops in its election machinery to try and ensure that it maintains that 50% plus one in this election. And you can't do that when you have disgruntled members. That's why I mentioned the example of Zandile Gumede, who's been brought back after during that 2022 elective conference in eThekwini. She couldn't even be in the conference because of step-aside. So it will be interesting to see then the report, which the Secretary General says will be received by the officials from the Electoral Committee that was led by Motlanthe. It will detail then who should be excluded, who should be included, and on what basis. And so he says, Mbalula, that is, this is when they'll be able to comment on certain individuals like Dr. William Kise, like Gwede Mantashe, like Zizi Godwa, who were implicated either in Digital Vibes or the State Capture Commission reports.
So, Ziyanda, we're hearing from a lot of opposition parties what their process is to draw up their candidate list, right? The DA has an 11-step process. There's a test involved. There's public speaking. There's exams. Action SA has a similar sort of rigorous process. What is the ANC's process?
Well, basically, what happens, Michelle, that it starts from a branch level and it moves upwards, and then the lists are finalized at a branch level, then it's submitted to the various provinces, and then the provinces also compile the list, which is why today's meeting is an extended NEC meeting, which means it will include not only just the usual provincial secretary and the chairperson of a province in the NEC meeting, but it will include all the top officials from the various 9 provinces of the ANC. So today we've seen, for instance, from the province of KwaZulu-Natal, Lumakuku, Smelane, Ntutugo, Mahlaba, and Tipo Mahlomuga forming parts of that meeting, and so it goes. And so the provinces now will go through a process as we are here now behind closed doors and present province by province then the various lists that they have compiled. And then there will also be a comparison with that of the electoral committee to say, well, of the people who have been submitted, these are the certain individuals that must be included. The Secretary General has also confirmed and clarified, Michelle, that the officials have the prerogative to add people onto the list even if they weren't there before for issues of continuity. And this came about when I asked the question about people like Naledi Pandor and Pravin Gordhan who aren't in the NEC, which would have meant in the previous conference they didn't make the numbers, but for continuity in the government, what would happen in that regard. And so officials do have that prerogative, and you can imagine if there is still an appetite from Dr. Naledi Pandor to continue her work at the Department of International Relations.
Ziyanda Ngcobo, live to us there in Pretoria. I believe it is, Ziyanda, in Boksburg. All right, Boksburg, at the Birchwood Hotel. Ziyanda, thanks very much indeed for that update.